So the anamorphic revolution continues with the new SIRUI 75mm anamorphic lens. This is actually the fourth lens from SIRUI that makes anamorphic video both affordable and easy. All of that changed in December of 2019 when SIRUI released the first ever true anamorphic lens that's sharp, affordable, and it can be used with mirrorless cameras. And that was the 50mm f1.8 anamorphic lens with a 1.33 squeeze aspect ratio. Then in 2020, they followed that up with the 35mm also f1.8 lens. And then at the beginning of 2021, they released the beautiful 24mm f2.8 anamorphic lens. Well, here we are in May of 2021, and SIRUI has done it again with their latest edition, which is the 75mm f1.8 anamorphic lens with the same 1.33 squeeze aspect ratio. This means that when shooting with this lens, just like all their other lenses, you'll get a 33% horizontal field of view increase. These lenses are designed to work with micro four thirds cameras and APS-C size cameras that shoot standard 16:9 video. That means that when the final image is de-squeezed by 1.33 times, you'll end up with an ultra-wide CinemaScope 2.4:1 aspect ratio. Of course, the wider aspect ratio is not the only reason that people decide to shoot with anamorphic lenses. Some of the other anamorphic characteristics that this lens produces are those beautiful oval bokeh highlights. Now, this lens has 13 aperture blades, which is the reason why it produces very smooth and very natural looking bokeh. Another characteristic are those typical horizontal lens flares. Now, for those of you who are worried about those overly strong blue light streaks, I can tell you that from my testing, I noticed that this can be easily controlled. By simply using a matte box and also putting the lens at just the right angle to your light source, you can make those horizontal lens flares as strong or as subtle as you want. What I do love about this lens is that aside from those blue light streaks, this also produces very organic looking secondary flares and light blooms. Another great thing about this lens is that it's surprisingly sharp considering it actually has real anamorphic optics inside. Unlike traditional or spherical lenses, anamorphic lenses usually suffer from terrible softness when you're using them wide open. Well, with this lens, even when you're shooting wide open at f1.8, it's actually pretty sharp. But if you stop it down just by one f-stop, you'll notice that it gets just as sharp as any good traditional spherical lens. Now, if you want that soft and very shallow depth of field, then this lens will deliver even better than the previous SIRUI anamorphic lenses. And that's considering the fact that this is a longer focal length of 75mm and that it's an anamorphic lens. It means that you will not have any problems creating a nice separation from your background or foreground. When I was shooting with this lens on a micro four thirds camera, I was still able to get a very narrow depth of field, both when the subject was very close to the camera, but also really far away, all the way up to like 20 feet. Of course, if you're using the APS-C size version of this lens, then that shallow depth of field is going to be even more noticeable. How does this anamorphic lens compare to the other SIRUI lenses? Well, it also has the same solid build quality, yet it's small and light enough for an anamorphic lens. It also matches the look of the other lenses perfectly and works alongside them really well. So if you actually end up getting all of these lenses, then you're definitely going to have the most important focal lengths to be able to shoot a complete project. Overall, I love the images that this lens creates. It's a sharp yet very organic looking lens with those true anamorphic characteristics. So if you're a fan of the other SIRUI lenses, or maybe you're curious about getting into the world of anamorphic lenses, then definitely check out the 75mm f1.8 lens from SIRUI. My name is Tom Antos, and I'll see you guys on another beautiful day. Bye.